Welcome back to Rüniverse. I'm Andrew, and in this video, we're going to go over how to build a Rüniverse deck. This is going to be a constructed Ruby Fire deck. Let's get started. So there are three main parts to consider when you're building a Rüniverse deck: your mages, the rest of your main deck, and your dream deck. I think the best way to start is to pick your facet or facets. In this case, we're going to do mostly Ruby deck and just start with the 12 mages from that facet. So here we have the 12 basic mages from Ruby. Now, because we're going to build a fire themed deck, so we're actually going to play with some cards that use the fire mechanic, I want to make sure I do have the fire mages. So you can see Allardyce has the fire focus here. He also has a draw gift, which is an effect that happens when you draw him as the first card on your turn, or when he is the card that represents a bond that's broken. In either case, you would trigger the gift effect and draw a card. And different mages have different gifts. So Burian has the bond gift, which can give you an additional gift if you are behind. Burner has the dispel gift, which can dispel an enemy creature, the highest level one. And we have the Ruby gift, which can make all of your opponent's creatures stop guarding, which is a particularly aggressive gift effect. So the third element to a mage card is what cards they can evoke from which facets. So mages can always evoke the cards of their own facet, as well as the two adjacent facets. So Ruby is the red facet, and they can also evoke cards from Thist, the purple facet, and Trine, the orange facet. So you can see Thist, Ruby, and Trine are represented there at the top. So you're free to mix mages from other facets. For example, we could play this Trine mage, and they would be able to evoke Ruby cards freely as well as Trine cards, but they would be able to evoke Orth cards and not Thist. So if we do mix in some Trine mages, we want to make sure to avoid Thist cards, because if we happen to draw more of our Trine mages, they won't be able to play those purple cards. And similarly, we wouldn't necessarily want to play Orth cards, the yellow ones, because our Ruby mages would not be able to play them. So here we have Flares, Sulfi, Ifurian, and Allardyce, and these are our 4 fire-focused mages. There are cards in our deck that care when we have a fire-focused mage, so these are going to be our most important mages. Also, we're going to be playing an aggressive deck, and the bond gift only triggers when you're behind. So Burian's bond gift won't really help us if we've already taken the aggressive lead and our opponent has fewer bonds remaining. So to that end, I'm not sure we want to play all of our bond gifts. We're not necessarily going to be able to heal from them, and we might actually want to go ahead and switch out for the Trine mages, because these two mages, Toby and Mayo, have the Trine gift, which is particularly aggressive. It can take out guards, and it can take out small enemy creatures. And as long as we don't play Orth or Thist cards, we'll be able to play all of our cards freely, no matter what mages we draw. Take note, we are keeping Ifurian, one of our bond mages, because he has the fire focus. And now that we have our mages sorted, let's take a look at the contents of our main deck. So this is the part where you kind of just get to go through the deck list and, like other games, choose which cards you want to play. Unlike some other TCGs though, in Rüniverse, you are limited based on the rarity of the cards you're using. So as you can see in the bottom right corner of Kittle here is 1 dot. That means Kittle is a common. We also have cards with 2 dots, for example this Flariger here, and the rares have 3 dots. Your constructed deck is limited to 40 pips. Now if you open a booster deck pack, it's going to contain 30 total pips. So the booster deck format is weaker than the constructed format, and you can make a bunch of upgrades when you open your booster deck and want to upgrade it to a constructed deck. So we'll have to keep that in mind as we build. So for my Ruby deck, I really wanted to play the Ruby Evolution Chain, which is going to include 2 Kittles, which evolve into Flarigers, and Flarigers can evolve into Sabres. And if we're able to follow this evolution chain all the way up, it can be extremely powerful. But even if we just play Sabres, the Brutality mixed with Fire Vim means if we have a bunch of fire cards in our deck, the Sabres can really take over the game. So let's put some more fire cards into our deck. Here I've got Fire Form, which builds up flame counters and has the fire trait. Magmafant also has the fire trait and also cares about flame counters. Inferno Ram, which we'll play 2 copies of, costs only 1 and can start growing bigger every time its mage plays a fire card, if their mage has a fire focus. So it's a good thing we kept all 4 of our fire mages. And then we have Immolate, which also cares about flame counters. So here's a little flame counter sub-theme. Flame counters don't do anything other than that when you get them, a lot of other effects will count how many you have. But important for Saybraze's brutality is that all of these cards are fire. We've got a few more fire traded cards to round out the deck here. These don't care about flame counters, but they still have that fire trait. So now that we've added a bunch of the cards we know we want in the deck, I like to take an assessment of the situation and just count up all the rarity pips that we have so far. And we've got 15 cards with 32 rarity pips, which means for the last 3 cards of our 18 card kind of main deck that isn't the mages, we have 8 rarity pips to work with, which means 2 rares and 1 uncommon can fit in. Now we can always go under 40 if we want, and we can always make changes from what we have in the main deck already if we want to change anything. But assuming we want to keep all of this, we'll just add 2 rares and 1 uncommon to round out the deck. So I've selected Inspire as our uncommon here, which is a powerful spell that can let a creature attack right away after it's played, or twice in 1 turn. And then we've got 2 of the Trine Rare Tusk. And again, because Ruby mages can freely evoke Trine cards, we don't have to worry about any costs for that. And of course, our 2 Trine mages will be able to play it just fine as well. And this is just going to round out our curve, give us a slightly early play, something we can play on turn 2. And it's a pretty powerful attacker for our aggressive deck. Now, a main deck does still have exactly 18 cards that aren't mages and exactly 12 mages. So now we have our main deck completed. And we can move on to the Dream Deck. Now, the Dream Deck is a minimum of 10 cards. You can have it basically as big as you want within reason, as long as you can carry it and shuffle it and whatnot. But you can't have more than 1 copy of any given card in your Dream Deck. And in addition, if a card is in your main deck, you can't have more than 2 copies between your main deck and your Dream Deck. I've also been considering the rule that if a card is in your main deck, it can't be in your Dream Deck at all. So you can't have the 1 and 1 split between the Dream and the main. But for now, that is not the case, and you are allowed to have 1 in the Dream Deck and 1 in the main deck if you choose. But if you have 2 in the main deck, you can't have any in your Dream Deck. So the other thing to keep in mind while building your Dream Deck is that even though there's no rarity pip limitation, rarity pips do still matter. And that's because of the way the Dream Delve action works. When you do a Dream Delve, you're going to shuffle up your entire Dream Deck. And then you reveal cards from the top of it until you've revealed 3 rarity pips or 3 cards, whichever comes first. In this case, we would have revealed 3 rarity pips, and thus we only get to dream 1 card. On the other hand, you might reveal 3 cards and only reveal 0, 1, 2, or 3 rarity pips. In this case, I've only hit 1, but I revealed 3 cards. So unlike the previous example, I get to have 3 cards for dreaming this turn, but they're all relatively weaker. And that's the risk you take when you build your Dream Deck. You want to keep the rarity pips in mind so that you have a good mix of rarities so you can get powerful cards, but also as many cards as possible. So let's take a look at the 10 cards I did select here. We've got Ether Spike, which is a powerful 0 pip card. It can attack for 1, which is a great way to get rid of a guard, break a bond, or occasionally take out a creature. Grum is just a simple vanilla level 2, but also has 0 pips, so we can play that as an attacker. There are 2 other 0 pip neutral cards, but I felt like they weren't a great fit for this deck. So moving into the commons, we have Aggressive Urge, which can let a creature attack for more damage if necessary to get through a bigger enemy creature. And it's also a Vim, letting that creature survive longer. Egg of Endless Magma is a 0, but it can be tasked to untask an ally. So you can reuse this to give things effectively the drive ability. Emberbore is a little level 1 creature that can attack for 2 as a little heat. Lurching Raptor has drive, so it can attack the turn it's played. Then we've got one little Trine card hiding out here. The level 0 Egg of Unerring Tenacity can become face down Vim for an ally creature. And incidentally, it still synergizes with Saybraze, even though this isn't a fire card. We have Burning Stare, which makes all an enemy mage's creatures stop guarding if you need to break through for some more bonds. Penterruption can attack for 5, divided as you choose among creatures, so you can take out multiple enemy creatures with that. And then the Burning Dragon, which is a level 4. It's a little bit clunky to evoke, but it can attack a bunch of times and take out a whole location itself, basically. And you'll note a bunch of these cards actually are fire. So even though they're not in our main deck, we've still built our dream deck to synergize with the Sabres. And level is another important consideration for your dream deck, because if you dream up a bunch of expensive cards, they're going to go away at the end of the mage phase if you don't have the power to evoke them. So having a nice mix of low cost cards so that you can actually evoke them all when you dream them, and higher cost, more impactful cards is something to keep in mind as well. And now that we have our mages, our main deck, and our dream deck all put together, the last important thing when building a Rüniverse deck, just like any TCG, is the bling. Upgrading to star variants, promos, and foils is certainly a must. Thanks for checking out how to build a Rüniverse deck. Now that mine's ready, I'm ready to shuffle up and play. And you can check the links in the description for where to see all of the cards in Rüniverse to start building your list, and where to pick up your own cards in the Game Crafter shop. Thanks for watching. Subscribe so we can get more subscribers, and bye.